Okay, good morning or good afternoon, depending on which time zone you're in. For most of us, I think it's good afternoon. This clinic is about the solid edge steering wheel and an introduction to the live rules. What we'll be studying today will just give you a start in using the steering wheel effectively. There's not much to it, and how that influences the live rules. So let's make a start. The steering wheel, just before we start, just a few things here. Just make sure that you've got your screen set up. If you need attention for any reason, there's a little hand symbol there. Just raise your hand, or you can ask a question. But I'd appreciate it if you could hold the questions to the end, and then we'll have a go at answering them. This session will be recorded as well, so it'll be available on our website. Today I've got a few slides to get through because I need to explain what the various components that we'll be dealing with are exactly, and use the right terminology so that we're all speaking the same language, if you like. Just excuse me while I have a cough. Right. The steering wheel is the tool that we use to manipulate geometry when we're synchronous modeling. We use a mixture of the steering wheel and the dimensions to fully control our geometry. If we select a face, it'll place the steering wheel on that face. The steering wheel itself, we'll see that there's 8 basic elements that make up the steering wheel. There's a little drawing just up here on the slide. We've got the origin, a thing called the tool plane around here. We've got a torus, which is used for rotating the steering wheel and all the geometry attached to it. And then we've got a primary axis and a secondary axis. Either of those can be used for moving geometry, as we'll see. Then we've got a primary bearing and a secondary bearing, which are used for reorienting the direction of the steering wheel. We'll get into that a little bit more. And then we've got our bearing knobs, which are like ordinal points. So if I want to move the primary axis so that it points out 90 degrees this way, I click on that knob. Okay, you can select either axis can be used to move geometry, so don't be worried about which axis is pointing out or away or in the direction you wish to move. You can use either one, as we'll see. You can drag to a screen location, or you can place a dimension in the dimension box. So if you key into the dimension box, you increment that move by the amount that you type in. And we'll see that as we go through. If we click the torus after we've selected a face, that will initiate a rotation. So the center of the torus is the center of rotation. We can move where that center is, and we will see that as well. I'll do a demonstration of all of this as we go along, as we get to the end. You can move the steering wheel by clicking on the origin, which is the big dot there, and moving it to an edge, as we have done in this case, or you could move it to a key point, whatever you like. You can put the center of the edge or anywhere along the edge. Your normal snaps apply. It's useful for rotating. See, we've placed it here, and we can rotate. Just looking at the various aspects of the steering wheel, and you'll see this presented in different ways. Now, be aware that we've got, depending on what geometry you select at what time, you'll get a different look to the steering wheel. We've got our 2D steering wheel here, which is, you'll see that you can use this steering wheel in the sketch mode. We've got a 3D face tool, so when we select a face, that's what we're going to get. When we select a cylinder, we'll get the cylinder tool, so we can move it left, right, up, down, or freeform move it using the tool surface here, tool surface here, tool surface on the 3D one as well. So when we've moved something or selected some geometry, we're likely to get the 3D steering wheel. It will work. It will make the correct assumption for what you're doing in any one of these when you select the geometry, so you don't have to worry about that too much. As I said before, going through what the components of the steering wheel are, and we will talk about those as we use them. Here's the origin. So we want to use it to move and position the steering wheel. In this case, we've clicked on the origin and we've moved it to the center of that hole, and you'll see the center snap come up as you do that, and it will orient the steering wheel to the hole so that the minor axis, let's go back one, right, the secondary axis at least, is aligned down the hole, so we can move the hole left or right using this axis. We could click on the knob here and move it up and down, or we could freeform move it selecting the surface. We can select an edge here, so it'll lie on that edge. We could select the center of the edge, the endpoints, and so on. The primary axis, okay, it's highlighted in green here. The vector for translation, well, it's where you're going to move it. So in this case, if we click on that primary axis, we will move the face in the direction of that arrow, normal to that arrow if you like. So if we click on it, it will start the move. If you shift and click, you will start, you can offset that. So you'll get a dimension tool comes up that offsets the arrow from the face that it's connected to. So if I wanted to move the face but be 20 millimeters off the face, I can do that. We'll see what that's for in a little while. Okay, the secondary axis does exactly the same thing. If clicked, it starts a synchronous move. So in this case, we've got it here. If we move, it's on this face. If we move, click on the secondary axis and move, it will move whatever's attached to the steering wheel. Shift and click again gives you an offset. So the primary and secondary axis do effectively the same thing. The torus of the steering wheel. Now, if we select some geometry and click on the torus, it will rotate. Now, what we rotate around is the center of the secondary axis here. At this stage, I'll just show you briefly what I mean. So we've got a component here. Just let the view catch up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick that face. It puts the face control on there, and then just place my steering wheel on the center of that face. Now, what we've seen here is that the steering wheel is oriented not the way I want it. I wanted the plane of the steering wheel to be coincident with the plane of that face. So all I have to do is hold the shift key down and click on the surface there, and it snaps it round. I actually did that deliberately so we got that effect. Now if I select the torus, I can rotate. I'll do this slowly so you can see the screen update. And I'm simply changing the shape. I'm bending that thing around that center point. Escape to go out of it again. I can move my steering wheel to some other location. If I want to retain exactly the same orientation of the steering wheel, I tap the shift key before selecting the origin. Then it will stay in that orientation. So now I want to say we could be relative to that edge there, and I'll rotate it relative to that edge. That would give us a different effect altogether. I hope you can see that updating in the video. Okay. Go back to our slides. That's the torus. You can see how effective that is. The tool plane, and you just saw me use that, it provides a plane of reference. If you click on it when you've selected some geometry, it will effectively be a freeform move. So here we've selected this hole. I've clicked on the tool plane, and I can move this left, right, up and down all at the same time. And remember, a shift click will reorient the whole steering wheel. In this case, I've placed a steering wheel here. I want to change the orientation so that the torus is coincident, or the tool plane and torus is coincident with this face. All I have to do is select the tool plane, shift, and click on the tool plane, and it will flip over. That's about one of the few things you've got to remember. Now, our primary bearing, it's this knob here. It's the opposite end of the origin of the primary axis. If it's shift and dragged, it defines the orientation. It steers the primary axis. So we can set up where this primary axis is pointing. We shift and drag to do that. The user may input an angle. You'll notice that it has a little a numeric box come up. We can type that in, or we can orient it to, if we wanted to a key point. So we could point that to a key point. I will do this a little bit later, and you'll see that working. The secondary bearing works the same way, except it will remain aligned to the plane that it was defined in. The primary bearing is like a 3D moving tool. Probably a good idea if I showed you that now, just to give you an idea. So if I select that face and then just move that a little bit. Now, okay, I'm just going to zoom in so you can see, we deal with the steering wheel. I'm just going to pick the knob there and move it. Now you'll notice that will move in sort of three-dimensional space. Okay, so we escape out of that, bring it back. Now, if I hold the shift key down and move this, I'm now rotating about its plane. And you see the angle come up there. I want it to move at 40 degrees. And that's what it's done. And I click to position it. Can be 40 degrees that way or 40 degrees that way. So 40 degrees that way. Okay, if I want to deal with my secondary axis, you'll notice I don't have to shift and click that. That will rotate. And I can align that to a key point. So I want to align it so it's pointing at the center of there. I want to align it so that it's pointing to that key point there. Pretty straightforward. Okay, the bearing knobs. These are like 90-degree indents. Pretty straightforward. If my orientation is up this way and I want it to be like so, I click on the bearing knob. Click on the bearing knob, goes down. Click on this bearing knob, goes up. Pretty simple. Pretty simple. Live rules. Now, we've all seen this at the bottom of our screen, and it looks like a bit of a mystery. I'm just going to go through them briefly and then show you them in action. First of all, what do the colors mean? A white background means that the rule is disabled. So this rule is disabled. This rule is disabled. A pale orange means it's enabled but not active. After you started a move or doing some work, any live rule that's being applied will be highlighted in green. If it's a red outline, it's found that live rule could apply, but it has been disabled. So we've turned off this live rule. It would have had a white background, but in the moving here, that live rule could have applied. So let's see what they mean. So our maintain concentric faces. Right, concentric faces, it's this one. The C. So if we move a face here and select the concentric faces that are enclosed in the geometry we're moving, these circular faces will move. So that everything that's in red plus the green will move together. The coplanar faces, which is P, you can type a letter to turn these on and off too when you're working with them. So C for concentric, P for coplanar. If we move this face that we've selected, which is the green one, all the faces which are coplanar with it will move with it. Pretty straightforward. Maintain tangent faces, T. Now these are the faces. This is not tangent C. This is a little different. This is tangent faces. So if I move this face, this arc here is tangent to it, or this arc face here is tangent to it. So as I move it down, that will remain. The tangency will follow it. So if we do it with the live rule on, as I've moved this up and down, what we see is this section here getting wider or narrower, as we're seeing here. If the rule is off, we move down, we lose the tangency condition in there. We have another tangent condition called tangent touching, and it keeps the construction geometry tangent to a face that we're working on. So we've got a plane here that is tangent to both these arcs. If we move or rotate that plane, then the tangent touching faces will move with it. Maintain faces, parallel faces. So here we've picked this face, we're rotating it, and these faces, one in behind here, one in behind here, and this face here, which were all parallel to that face that we selected, will still remain parallel during the move. Perpendicular faces. Now here we've got an object with a face that's perpendicular. As I select that face and rotate it, with the rule off, you see these faces aren't retaining their perpendicularity. With the rule on, they are. Just show you that very briefly. Sorry, get the right file back. So again, when I'm rotating this one, as I did before, if I turn that rule on, maintain perpendicular faces, and now rotate it, what we'll see is this end face down here, that one, notice it's highlighted in blue, and it's retaining its perpendicularity. If I turn that rule off, and now rotate it, you'll see it's no longer perpendicular. And it's not selected either, it's not in blue, so that face is not being affected. Okay. Symmetric about base planes, this is a pretty common one. This is the base planes of the part we see here. So if I move this face, its opposing face, it'll find the symmetric face and move it with it. So I'm moving this face inwards, that moves with it. The symmetry plane in this case will be the YZ plane, this plane here, denoted by those two axes. You'll see that come up in the live rule as well. The live rule, we'll see that shortly. It'll show you which plane is being affected. A coplanar axes. Here's an example with some circles. These happen to be coplanar. If I pick one and move it, its opposite number rule will remain coplanar to it and move with it. So we see this effect here. Keeps holes lined up during moves. Same radius if possible. So we've got a radial dimension in here. It is not locked. It can be updated when we change something, and we move this portion of the geometry inwards. It's just maintaining that radius. When off, the radius will be changed to compensate. Keep orthogonal to base. This one, we're going to move this hole. If the rule is off, then this face which was orthogonal to the base planes, is no longer. If we turn the rule on, then when we move this hole, this face will remain upright instead of angling. Pretty simple, but pretty basic. This one tends to fool people a little bit. Locked to base reference plane. This one's on by default. And if any faces on the model lie on the base reference plane, so the top face of something we've sketched on the base reference plane, if we try and move that, it will fail because the live rule says it can't do it. Notice that it also keeps cylinders that are aligned with the base coordinate system in place as well, so they won't move unless you turn the rule off. So it's a pretty logical thing for it to do. Now, sometimes you don't want the live rules to be functioning because they will prevent you from doing something. So in this case, what we've done, we want to rotate this face with the steering wheel. I'm not showing the steering wheel for clarity, but I've just suspended the live rules. So you just tick on the suspend, and the live rules will be suspended, allowing you to do what you want to do. The face checks fail on this one, so I suspend them, make the change, type in the angle that I want to change it to, and then unclick the suspend, and the live rules go back to where they were before I did that. So it retains what it was before. Okay, let's take a quick look at this in the live, as it were. So the first thing I'm going to do is to just select this top face, and there's our steering wheel handle, the face handle, or the face handle. And if I move that, bear with me, sorry, I meant to do some work before I did this. Okay, make sure the things are off I want to have off. Yes. It will move. Now, a couple of things are going on in here. We see a number of faces moving. When you're moving, just a little hint here, keep away from the geometry so it doesn't snap to snap points. You'll notice up in the command bar here, it's got all the key points. So I might find key points inside the geometry there that I don't want. But what I want to do is not freeform move it, I want to move it up exactly 12 millimeters. So that's what it does. Now we can do exactly the same thing by having a dimension in there. So if I just put a dimension between there and this arc down here, gives us an overall dimension, a height dimension. I can change the value of that dimension just by rotating my cursor on the dimension field or typing in an exact value. In this case I want to make it 66. Now we've got the live rules off when we're doing this. So the next thing I want to do is just move this front face. So back to my select tool. And if I move this front face, what's going on? We see a couple of things happening here. If we look right down the bottom, we'll see live rules adjusting 7 faces. So even though the live rules are basically turned off, it's picking up the tangent edges and moving those with it. Otherwise it wouldn't make sense. It would look a bit ugly. We also see up in the about halfway up the screen on the right hand side a little glyph with a dimension and 1, 2, 3 in it. It shows us that there's a dimension being updated. Okay, so having done that, I could make an exact change to that if I wanted to. So if we want to bring that out, let's say 20 millimeters. And I could have changed that dimension to do the same thing, couldn't I? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select 2 faces now. Now, I clicked on this angle face, I want to select another face, and to get into the multiple select mode, I tap my space bar. You'll notice my cursor now has a plus minus attached to it. That means it will add faces, so I'm adding that face. Now, that's okay, that's all good. What's going to happen if I click on the steering wheel and rotate it? We'll see both those faces, because I selected both those faces, will update. Let's move the steering wheel, so we pick the origin, and I want to move it up just to that edge up there. It happens to be on the center of that edge as well. You saw the center glyph come on. And I can rotate it again. We can do the same thing down the bottom. Up. Just reselect them. And they'll move again. And this time what I want to do is take off, let's say, -2. I want to decrease the angle by 2 degrees. So we can see how the steering wheel is allowing us to change geometry. I could have changed the dimension there as well by selecting both. Let's move up to this hole up here, and you'll notice now the whole steering wheel comes on. I can move it left and right, like so. I can move it back and forth, like so. Or I can select the tool plane and freeform move it. Okay, let's undo that move for the moment. And take the rule, but this time I want to turn on concentric and maintain tangent faces. So now when I move this, I'll do the freeform move again. Notice what's happening. The faces that are highlighted in blue are the faces that are being affected, and see, we can see it's being maintained as concentric. I was trying to think of the word, concentric, and we can see the tangencies are remaining. If I escape, what I want to add now is the symmetric rule. So we'll turn on symmetry and do that again. Now, because of symmetry, what we're seeing is the other side move in concert. And you can see that down in the live rules, we can see the symmetry is highlighted in green, and the ZX plane is highlighted because that's the plane we're being symmetric around. Again, escape out of that. These three holes are in alignment, and I want them all to move together. So the rule that I turn on there will be maintain coplanar axes. So we click on that, and we do the move again. So click the plane, and now we'll see highlighted in blue everything that's moving, and down in the live rules we'll see the it's moving it on the y-axis, the coplanar, maintaining the coplanar relationship. Escape again. We'll notice too that these sides were tilting when we were moving. What we want to do there is to use the live rule, keep orthogonal to base if possible. So now, when I make that change, it just happens. Right, so we've got the sides remaining orthogonal to the base. So let's update that and place that out there. Let's change our width here to 160, so we can just type in 160. Now all the rules will get applied here because I'm using a dimension, and it will update accordingly. Okay, let's have a look at something a little different. I've got some slots here. So what I'm going to do is pick that one, just that face, and move it. Now we'll notice that the symmetric live rule is applied, but it's not doing what I want to do is move all these slots as well. So if I escape and I turn on the rule maintain coplanar faces, what we'll see is that they all move. Looking right down the bottom again, remember we're adjusting 18 faces here. That's the planar faces, and the fillets and what have you are all moving together. Okay, I could put a dimension on there, I put an offset, but remember also, let's have a look up in our command bar here, we've got key points. We can turn the key points on, we can filter the key points. I just want an end key point, and what I want to do is to have all that aligned to this key point here. So that's the same as this face down here. Now what happens when we move this? This is a common request that we have from people. It says, well, okay, when I'm moving things I don't know what's going on. Things are changing and I don't know what's happening. So this can be did I get that? I don't actually know if I did this. I did this correctly. I didn't. Okay, so just move that so I've got to the key point here. There we go. And if I move this again, okay. Now for some reason, okay, I'm missing something here. Just let me. I was fiddling with this earlier, my fault. Okay. If we're zoomed right in, okay, like that, and I'm making a move, there may be other things being affected that I don't know about, and this can concern me. So let's just see what it's telling us. As I'm moving this, we'll notice up on the right hand side of the screen there's a glyph with 1, 2, 3 in it, which is saying, yep, there's a dimension changing somewhere. Down on the bottom here we can see that live rules is adjusting 20 faces. Okay, but how can I tell which faces are being adjusted? What I'm going to do is pause. If we look down on the live rules, you'll see a pause button, or you can tap the V key on your keyboard. Now when you zoom out, what you'll see, a couple of things are important here. We're going to see this dimension is being updated, this dimension is being updated, because when we pause, only the dimensions that are changing are being shown. We see all the faces that are being affected because they're highlighted in blue. Okay, so we do know what's going on, and it's quite helpful. So we've paused the live rules. If I want to start them going again, I can press the V key again or just hit the play button, and away they go. That we're playing again. So one more thing I wanted to show you there, just as I hit the V key again. Right, hit the V key again. If we go to one of these dimensions that has changed, and I place my cursor on it, it shows me what the previous value was. They'll be the same, of course. That's quite useful. So V key again, we're moving. Okay, when we're doing this, one of the things that I've found, I don't want to change the middle slot. So this one here, I want to move everything else except that middle slot. So let's just see how we'd go about that. Let's say if I select this slot and move, well, everything's going to move with it, but I don't want the middle slot to go with it. How do I do this? Well, if we look down in our live rules again, we'll see that there's an icon with a cross in it, which is the edit icon. We can also use Control plus the E key, puts us into the advanced or edit live rules mode. Now in here it's showing us everything that's being affected by these live rules and the changes that we're making. What I want to find is that plane and take them out. So if I just select the planes and move down, or hover over them, apologies, we can see the end plane on this one lights up, this one here. That's that one, so I can turn off the coplanar rule on that. And I want to find the other plane, the other end. And there it is there. Right, I can turn off the coplanar on that one. Click it off. Right, so I've deselected those two from the rule. I can click on the Accept button, and that one's left where it was, and I can make the other changes in here now. So I want to put that down to wherever that needs to be. So we've made the changes to these two slots, but left that one alone, without having to go and manually select things, just by using the live rules intelligently. Okay, one more thing to do here. I've got a sketch in here, and we're going to modify that sketch. I'm just going to turn it on. You'll notice that that sketch isn't on the top plane anymore. It was before, but I now need to move it. So the steering wheel works exactly the same way on sketches. So if I go into that sketch, I can select the sketch from the edge bar here. I can select it by right click and picking up the sketch. Either way, a steering wheel goes onto the sketch plane, and if I move that up, it'll just go straight up to a key point, and I want to be that key point there, so it's right on that face. Okay, I want to select two regions, so spacebar to select the next region, and that will either project if I pull up or cut down. Now notice that that's a projection. An open profile. Well, I want it to act as an open profile. We come up to our command bar. It's automatically closing the sketch. I can get it to open the sketch. So if we cut down now, cut in that way, and cut it down, we've got it open. So there we go. Okay, what I want to do now is to just manipulate this face a little bit. We can, of course, rotate that face, but I can apply a constraint directly to that face. What I want to do is to go to my Face Relate tools up here, and I'm going to use a coplanar. So we go to the Face Relate tools, select the coplanar. I don't want to persist it. Okay, so I turn off the persist. I'll explain what that is in a moment. Select that face, check it off. Select this face, check it off, and it's made it coplanar. Alright? So now if I change any one of these faces, the coplanar rule applies. Okay? but it's only because of this rule here applying, the coplanar faces. If I had suspended that, let's suspend all the rules, and now move this face, it's not going to move with it, is it? It is because I didn't suspend them. My apologies. Suspended. There we go. Okay. Just escape to get out of that. What I'm going to do is do the face relate again, the same coplanar, but I'm going to persist this rule. We'll see what the difference is. So I pick the face, I pick the other face, doesn't really matter which one, and accept that. Now we see in our edge bar relationships come up, and I've got a coplanar in there. So if I modify either one, even though they're suspended, those two faces that have the relationship will update, because that relationship in my sidebar always applies. Okay, we've gone through a fair bit here that's that can be a little confusing, and it's just a matter of taking these basic rules and applying them and thinking about and watching what's happening in the live rules as you apply them. So let's go back to my slides. As I said before, this will be recorded, so you can download it from our website or look at it on our website and replay it and get an idea of what's happening as you're going through it yourself. But what I'm saying is, just by spending a little time studying and practicing these simple steering wheel procedures, you'll very quickly become proficient in synchronous modeling. It's the key to synchronous modeling, is the use of the steering wheel and the interplay of the live rules. Excuse me, losing my voice, probably a good thing. Okay, we'll open up for questions and answers now. If you want to type in a question, I'll do my best to answer it. Remember too, the guys in support can help you very easily at any time. Don't forget the support number, 1300-883-653. Also, while I'm doing a plug here, don't forget on our website to have a look around our website. In particular, one of the valuable aspects we have is our training area. Take a look at that. We're running training courses, and there's a schedule for the training courses up there. Training is invaluable. What we're doing with these sessions is free training and just little aspects to help you along, but it doesn't really replace instructor-led training, where you can work interactively with somebody and really learn some of these procedures and become efficient in them. It's all about efficiency. The reason we're making these changes to the software is not because it seems like a good idea at the time, it's to make you more efficient, make your job easier, make it quicker, allow you to do more in less time and with less effort. I don't see any questions yet, as everybody knows everything. Should I ask questions? How would that be? Huh? Okay, look, if there's no questions, next time, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be running another one, and next week you'll get an email about what it'll be all about, and be the same time, same place, same station, and we'll be talking about something else that might help you a little bit. But as I said, don't forget, the recording will be on our website in a day or two. It just takes me 24 to 48 hours to get it down to Melbourne, and it'll be all set to go. So, thank you for your attention. There's no questions. Everybody understands everything perfectly. It's wonderful. I will simply close by giving my thanks for your attention, and I was going to say for your questions, but there hasn't been any yet. So we will move along. Until next time, good edging.